Welcome to the Portrait Archive. In the waning light of the English Renaissance, when the world was half lit by reason and half by shadow, there lived a man who tried to measure the heavens with one hand and summon angels with the other. He was a living contradiction, a rigorous mathematician who believed he could decode the language of God, a trusted advisor to a queen, who died a disgraced outcast, a man who laid the intellectual groundwork for the largest empire in history, yet who could not secure his own legacy. This is the portrait of Dr. John Dee, the Elizabethan era's most brilliant and enigmatic mind. To understand John Dee is to step into a world where our modern categories of science and magic did not exist. For him, the universe was a single, vast, divine text, written by the hand of God in the languages of mathematics, astronomy, and angelic speech. His entire life was a desperate, relentless, and ultimately tragic quest to read it. John Dee was born in London on July 13, 1527, to Roland Dee, a minor court official, and his wife, Jane. From the very beginning, destiny seemed to tap him on the shoulder. He was a child of formidable intellect and bottomless curiosity. At the tender age of 15, he entered St. John's College, Cambridge, where he quickly established himself as a phenomenon. It was said he would spend 18 hours a day in study, allowing himself only 4 hours for sleep. His hunger for knowledge was not merely academic, it was a spiritual and almost physical craving. His brilliance did not go unnoticed. He was elected a founding fellow of Trinity College and even created the stage effects for a production of Aristophanes' piece, engineering a mechanical scarab that flew so spectacularly and mysteriously across the stage that the audience whispered he was a sorcerer. It was a reputation that would both fascinate and haunt him for the rest of his days. Seeking the deeper, more esoteric knowledge he felt England could not offer, Dee traveled to the intellectual centers of Europe. In Louvain, he studied with the great cartographers Gemma Frisius and Gerardus Mercator. In Paris, at just 24, he delivered a series of lectures on Euclidean geometry that electrified the academic world. His audiences were so large they overflowed the lecture halls. He was not just teaching mathematics, he was preaching a new philosophy, that number and geometry were the foundational principles of a harmonious cosmos, a divine architecture waiting to be understood. Returning to England with a formidable European reputation, Dee found a patron in the young Princess Elizabeth. His timing was perilous. When Queen Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary, took the throne, Dee's association with the Protestant Elizabeth and his reputation for conjuring landed him in prison on a charge of treasonous calculating, a vague accusation that blended mathematics with witchcraft. He narrowly escaped a worse fate. Upon Elizabeth's ascension in 1558, Dee's star rose. He became her most trusted scientific advisor. It was Dee who used his knowledge of astrology to select the most propitious date for her coronation. He was a regular visitor to her private chambers, and they shared long, intense conversations about philosophy, history, and the nature of her empire to be. And it was indeed an empire he envisioned. In 1577, he presented to the Queen a monumental work entitled General and Rare Memorials pertaining to the perfect art of navigation. In its pages, he made a bold and historic argument, that Britain had a legal and historical right to discover and colonize new lands across the globe. To describe this vast, future domain, he coined a term that would echo through the centuries, the British Empire. Dee was the intellectual engine of this expansion. He taught Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Humphrey Gilbert the art of navigation. He instructed the pilots of Martin Frobisher's expeditions on how to chart their course to the New World. His house at Mortlake, on the banks of the Thames, became a nexus of England's intellectual and exploratory ambition. His library was his command center, a place of wonder that grew to contain over 4,000 books and 1,000 manuscripts, the greatest private library in Elizabethan England, perhaps in all of Europe. It was a collection that ranged from the latest scientific texts to the most obscure and forbidden works of Hermetic philosophy, alchemy, and Kabbalah. For all his public success, a deeper, more urgent quest consumed Dee. He was a devout Christian Neoplatonist, and he believed that before the fall of man and the subsequent fall of language at the Tower of Babel, humanity had possessed a perfect, primal tongue. This was the language God had used to create the cosmos, a language where the word for a thing was not a mere label, but its very essence. Dee called it the Enochian language, believing it was the tongue used by the biblical patriarch Enoch to speak with angels. He believed that if he could recover this language, he would not merely understand nature, he would be able to command it. He could heal all diseases, transmute base metals into gold, and achieve ultimate spiritual enlightenment. His immense collection of scientific instruments was not enough for this task. He needed to go directly to the source. He needed to speak with the angels themselves. The problem was, Dee himself lacked the gift of scrying, the ability to see into the spirit world. He was the intellectual, the theoretician. He needed a vessel, a skilled medium. For years, he employed a series of scryers, with limited success. Then, in 1582, a man named Edward Kelley entered his life, and the course of Dee's destiny was irrevocably altered. Edward Kelley was everything Dee was not. He was a charismatic, shadowy figure, likely a convicted forger who had had his ears cropped as punishment, a fact he concealed under a close-fitting cap. He was an opportunist, a trickster, and a brilliant psychological manipulator. But he also possessed a powerful, perhaps even genuine, talent for scrying. Kelley's descriptions of the angels that appeared in Dee's shoe stone, a polished piece of black obsidian, were vivid and compelling. He described magnificent, terrifying beings with names like Uriel, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Dee, the meticulous scholar, would sit at his desk, praying fervently, while Kelley gazed into the stone. For hours, days, and eventually years, Dee filled volume after volume with the communications Kelley relayed. These were the famous angelic conversations. The angels, through Kelley, delivered the Enochian language. It came with its own alphabet, its own complex grammar, and thousands of words. They also delivered complex magical seals or sigils and detailed instructions for constructing special tables and devices to better facilitate the communication. Dee was ecstatic. He was on the verge of the ultimate breakthrough. But Kelley, the master manipulator, began to twist the celestial revelations to his own earthly ends. The angelic commands grew increasingly strange and demanding. They ordered that the two men should share all their possessions in common. Then, in a shattering decree in 1587, the angels commanded that they should share their wives. Dee, a man of deep moral conviction, was horrified. But his faith in the divine source of the messages was absolute. To disobey was to risk losing access to the divine language forever. After an agonizing internal struggle, he consented. The act broke his wife, Jane Dee, and marked the beginning of the end of Dee's respectable life. The partnership with Kelley, now strained and toxic, took them on a desperate tour of the royal courts of Central Europe, performing their angelic sessions for nobles like King Stephen Bathory of Poland and the wealthy magnate, Count Wilhelm Rosenberg, in Bohemia. They were part scholars, part circus act. Kelley, who had also convinced their patrons he was a master alchemist, was eventually knighted. Dee, the true genius, remained in his shadow. The final break came when Dee could no longer ignore Kelley's duplicity. He returned to England in 1589, without Kelley, to a country that had moved on without him. He found his magnificent Mortlake library, the work of a lifetime, vandalized and looted by a suspicious mob who believed him a black magician. Though a grieving Queen Elizabeth gave him a minor position as warden of Christ's College, Manchester, his influence was gone. When James I, a king who had written a book on demonology and hated witchcraft, took the throne, Dee's last hopes for restoration were extinguished. He spent his final years in poverty and obscurity back at Mortlake, petitioning the king to clear his name of the charge of sorcery, to no avail. John Dee died in 1608 or 1609 and was buried in the churchyard at Mortlake, in a grave that is now lost. The man who had conversed with queens and angels was erased from history, his immense contributions to science and exploration buried under the scandal of his occult pursuits. The portrait of John Dee is one of the most poignant and complex we will ever assemble. He was not a fool or a madman. He was one of the most learned men of his age, a true scientist who pushed the boundaries of navigation, mathematics, and geography. Yet, he was also a man whose hunger for ultimate knowledge was so profound that he ventured into realms that reason could not map. He stands as a permanent reminder of a time when the human intellect reached in two directions at once, one hand firmly grasping the compass and the astrolabe, pointing the way to the modern, empirical world, the other hand clutching a crystal ball, straining to hear the whispers of a lost, divine paradise. He was the architect of an empire of the earth, who spent his life trying to find the keys to an empire of heaven. In the end, John Dee's greatest tragedy was that he mapped the entire world, but could never find his way home. And so we place another portrait back in the archives. The story of John Dee is now complete, but countless others await discovery. Subscribe to the Portrait Archive and hit the bell to ensure you're here when we unveil our next portrait. The stories of history's most fascinating figures deserve to be remembered, and with your help, we'll continue preserving them. Until next time, the archives await.